there is a chance the Cardinals do become some sort of semblance of a Super Bowl team. It's not a major chance, but it could happen. But first, before we go to the Cardinals, let's start here. So the Minnesota Timberwolves fall last night against the Oklahoma City Thunder. They are now out of the playoffs. The Oklahoma City Thunder look like a juggernaut. It looks like it's just the Oklahoma City Thunder's year. However, of course, things can change. The NBA is weird. But ultimately, at the end of the day, right now, it looks as if the Oklahoma City Thunder are probably going to win the NBA Finals. The Pacers don't look like they have any chance, but that's not what we're focusing on. The Minnesota Timberwolves don't have many ways that they can get better. They don't have a ton of ways that they can make their team immediate contenders. And this team has clearly tapped out of what they are. Rudy Gobert, not great in that Thunder series. Anthony Edwards is still awesome. Julius Randle reverted way back to his mean in that Thunder series. They're going to need to move something. They're going to need to make a major splash. This is where people talk about potentially them having some Cat remorse. Cat was not working with this Timberwolves team. It was always bound to fail. The Twin Towers, as they called it, Gobert and Karl Anthony Towns, that was not something that was really had a long shelf life. But let's talk about it like this. There's not many ways for the Minnesota Timberwolves to get much better. They don't have the necessary assets to go get Giannis Antetokounmpo, nor do I think Giannis wants to play in Minnesota. Although Anthony Edwards and Giannis would be insanely fun to watch. Both guys are ball dominant. I'm not so sure that is the avenue that you'd want to go. But the team with the most interesting players, not picks, is the Minnesota Timberwolves. The Phoenix Suns are trying to come up with a new play style. And according to Brian Gregory and according to Matt Ishbia, from what we've seen at press conferences covering them with Locked On Phoenix Suns or doing other things, getting in the weeds, that doesn't really matter. But watching them talk about the next great version of the Phoenix Suns, it seems like it's a team that leans more into what the Minnesota Timberwolves do and not so much what the Phoenix Suns do. And you're not going to get an insane amount of picks. Other teams have better picks than the Minnesota Timberwolves have. But if you're looking to stay competitive now while also trying to plan for the future, the Minnesota Timberwolves have players. Now, it would have to be a 3-team, 4-team trade, which gets incredibly complicated. But we know about the relationship between Kevin Durant and Anthony Edwards. We saw that form at the Olympics last year. Anthony Edwards' favorite player growing up and still is Kevin Durant. There's real chemistry there. And it's no shock to me that Kevin Durant would want to go play with his boy. He's done that with Kyrie Irving. He's done that with James Harden. He's done that with Devin Booker. Anthony Edwards might just be the next guy on the list. And so when you're talking about a team that could give the Suns exactly what they need in terms of assets, players, and potentially go get picks somewhere else, because it's not an easy deal. You can't just grab Jaden McDaniels and Naz Reid. You're probably picking one of those two guys. Naz Reid would be, if you're talking just about players, Naz Reid would be a phenomenal piece to have around Devin Booker. He's kind of the small ball 5, shoots the 3 ball really effectively, and is a really good defender. Or you could go the Jaden McDaniels route, who has taken a little bit of a step back from what he was last season, but an elite level defender, long, shoots the 3 ball, fine. Those are the kind of players you got to put around Devin Booker. You're also probably talking about moving Julius Randle to a 3rd team. What is a non-starter for me is any trade that starts with, here's Julius Randle. Because the only thing you're getting from that is cap relief because you can let go of him next year, he's on a pretty big deal. But if you're talking about players, if you're the Suns, could you get Naz Reid and Jaden McDaniels for Kevin Durant? And get picks somewhere else? Maybe it's a 3-teamer. Maybe it's a 4-teamer deal. Could you get those picks somewhere else? The Minnesota Timberwolves are maybe the most interesting destination for Kevin Durant. We know how much this guy values relationships, and we know how highly Anthony Edwards thinks of Kevin Durant. For a team that doesn't necessarily have the insane pick assets that you might get from another team, this team's got players out the wazoo that fit the next great Phoenix Suns team. Gritty, defensive, suffocating. Those are the types of guys that you'd want. And I'm talking about potentially getting a Naz Reid and a Jaden McDaniels. Maybe it's Jaden McDaniels, Julius Randle, and you move Julius Randle to a third team and you get more pick assets. This is a team that's really interesting because Anthony Edwards, he ain't getting any younger. The dude might be 23 now, but the Minnesota Timberwolves have to continue putting an exceptional team around him or he'll walk out that door. It's not like that they have all year, it's not like they're going to have his whole career to get him an NBA championship. This guy wants to win. And if you present the opportunity of Kevin Durant playing with them, there is I think a very good chance that that would be something that both parties would be interested in. So when you're talking about an interesting team that could potentially get everything you need in a trade, a couple of players, maybe a player, maybe a Nickeil Alexander-Walker, maybe a Jaden McDaniels, a Naz Reid, move Julius Randle to a different team, a combination of those four players and maybe a pick or two from someone else, that is the gold mine of what you're talking about in terms of picks and players that you can get to keep your team competitive for now to appease Devin Booker, as well as get those picks down the line. And who knows? Jaden McDaniels could turn into an even better player. Naz Reid could turn into an even better stretch five. But what I know is Devin Booker would fit really well beside those two players. That's what makes a ton of sense to me. And with the relationship with Anthony Edwards and Kevin Durant that has continued to blossom over the past couple of seasons and at the Olympics, it's a match made in heaven. And the Minnesota Timberwolves don't have a ton of ways that they can get better. They've already kind of spent their assets on Rudy Gobert. They've went all in and got Dante DiVincenzo from the New York Knicks, Julius Randle from the Knicks. They moved Karl Anthony Towns. And for a guy like Kevin Durant who's not going to take an insane amount of money, maybe it takes a discount to play with Anthony Edwards. But it's not going to be this Shai Gilgeous-Alexander level contract, and it's only a 2-year deal. You're not looking at something that's 5+ years. So if you're the Suns, a really interesting team that could give you the necessary picks and players to make you that team that you want to be, obviously, clearly, the gritty, suffocating, defensively, just hard-nosed team, those two players fit it. Naz Reid is the perfect stretch five for Devin Booker, and Jaden McDaniels is the perfect wing for Devin Booker. Almost like bouncers at a nightclub to protect their guy. So the first thing came to my head last night when the Minnesota Timberwolves lost was, all right, how can the Suns get what they need from Minnesota? Because I think if you dangle Kevin Durant in front of the Minnesota Timberwolves, Anthony Edwards could pressure them to trade for him. And he might say something like, listen, man, you want me to stay loyal to you? Get me my guy, the guy who I grew up idolizing, Kevin freaking Durant. So that was the first thing that came to my mind last night. It's super interesting. And you can get, like Steven said in the chat, a couple of building blocks to keep you competitive for the future, but also a chance to move on and get picks for the future. Ultimately, listen, I think it's a win-win for both teams because the guys that you have right now, they're not winning. You got beaten up in the Western Conference Finals twice.